Hi everyone, welcome to another comic-centered edition of Words, Images, and Worlds. There is what appears to be a newsstand in the corner, a comics rack. There are multiple comics around, and in the midst of all of this, a comics creator. Glad to be talking with creator Keith Finch. Keith, thank you for joining.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Is that a digital screen behind you of the Morphodroids? Is that what's happening right now behind you?
Yeah, it's a TV with a slideshow put up on it. I my background's in branding, so you got to be a little extra and have your branding behind you.
Love it. Love the creativity.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Well, Morphodroids is, I know the series that we're centering on, but I also know you have connections with Shane Berryhill. Is this correct?
that's right. Shane and I met, goodness, probably a decade ago. He had a series out, and it was part of a free comic book day release, and it was doing a signing, and we met then. And then a few years passed, and we had a local group at one of the local comic shops that was a group for creators to come together and kind of workshop ideas, talk about process, that kind of thing. It was a great group. Thankfully, was glad to be part of it, but COVID unfortunately um, brought that to an end. But I did one project with Shane that I don't think actually got released. It was kind of in that um, period where the group was starting to um, disband a little bit. But
Hmm.
and there was one story that I did that I wrote, drew. That was kind of that was the first thing that I'd done in comics, and it was part of this little anthology book.
Nice.
Actually hadn't looked at it in quite some time, and the I will say the artwork is like most creators. The first thing you do, you're probably not in love with it, but it was an important step, and you got to kind of just get something done. But after reading through it, and it's very short, I can see that there's a through line in the work that I'm doing in Morphodroids.
Yeah. I know. I love that. Love a good through line, and that takes us back a little bit in your creative journey. But let's take it back even further. What initially connected you with storytelling in comics?
So it was actually very difficult for me to escape comics growing up. Um, my parents were really young when I was born. My mom was 16, my dad was 18. So they were essentially children raising children.
Mhm.
And my dad read Conan the Barbarian regularly. And to the point, and he had issue one framed, it was on the wall at all times. So there were comics around in a very visible way. Growing up in the early 80s, of course, we were being fed a lot of comic adjacent things through, Super Friends and other cartoon media. So I was always, the kid who was sketching and reading comics and just really got immersed in that form of storytelling at an early age.
Well, cool. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I was seeing some of that inspiration in Morphodroid. So anything that you'd like to say about how this project came to be?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, going back, I think there's probably a lot of Genesis stories about creators starting a project or turning a page during COVID.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
I had a lot of time at home, like most people, So I have a fairly decent comic collection, and I spent that time to organize, catalog, rebag and board, all of that kind of thing that, when you're reading and just putting stuff aside, you may not uh, put the attention on. And as I was going through this, I just kept seeing this ad for these Morphodroid toys on the back of a lot of Marvel comics. And, I was of the age that I should have known what these were, but I had never seen them, never encountered them, in a thrift store or online or anything. So, with a lot of spare time on my hands, internet sleuthing uh, started and found out that there were 9 of these toys. They came out in 1985. They came out from a small company, Vector Intercontinental.
Hmm.
And, you kind of go down the rabbit hole of getting into legal documents to find who ran this company. And long story short, I ended up finding the gentleman who owned the company, who owned the rights to, the name and the characters and all of that. We were able to work out a licensing agreement, and here we are. I mean, it's taken 5 years to get to this point, but that's kind of the genesis for this particular project. Was just a lot of curiosity, and one thing led to another. Um, so yeah, that was kind of how the project came to be. It, like most projects, was not a straight line from uh, point A to point B, and everything just worked perfectly. I had worked with an artist who, about halfway through the comic book portion of the project, just disappeared. He
Hmm.
disappeared for several months, and during that time, you know, trying to get some connection going, and it was crickets. So obviously, for the project to move on, I had to find another artist, and thankfully, Sergio Rios, a very talented Mexican artist, came on board, and we started from the beginning and redid all the pages that had already been done, and then finished the project out. So yeah, that's it's been a bit of a bumpy road, and it took a lot longer to get here than I had hoped. But I think the final product is something I'm pretty proud to put out, and something I think folks will enjoy.
Yeah, yeah, that bumpy road of creation is a common theme that comes up a lot. It's usually not just point A to point B. Usually it's something a little more circuitous and back and forth. So glad the project has come together. I noticed in the materials I've looked through so far, you have a cast of interesting characters. What's it like to balance those characters and to sort of build that foundation of the story as you go through?
So in issue one, Isaac is the main character, and I could really put a lot of myself in Isaac. Uh, so much like the kids in issue one, I grew up in a trailer park. My parents were divorced, so I could really pull from a lot of personal experience, and a lot of that shows up in Isaac. But from there, it became a matter of what kind of ensemble do I want to build around Isaac that can complement his things and bring unique perspectives to future stories. But by and large, issue one centers are from Isaac's point of view. But as we move into the series, you'll see Beverly and all of these other characters getting more panel time, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah. Great expression there, panel time as well. I like that. I like that. So please tell us about the publishing plan. How many issues are you thinking about? Do you have a long range, multi-story plan, or where would you like to take this creative universe?
Yeah, I absolutely hope to make more. Issue one is really a lot of seed planning for future stories. I don't have a number in mind. I'll keep making them as long as people keep supporting the project. As far as publishing plans, the current plan would be I'm planning on releasing comics only, or kind of focused on the comic part via print on demand through Amazon. And not just in English, I'm planning on doing a couple of um, different language options to see how that works out. I've got so far Spanish and Filipino versions almost ready to go. So, just really trying to see what the market would be interested in and trying to fill that need. So, following that release, and the one that I'm really putting a lot of effort into, I'll be kickstarting probably later in the summer. This is in 2025 for anyone watching later on. Um,
Mhm.
a more deluxe version. It's currently at 84 pages, but it could go higher with supplemental material that really builds out the universe, that plants a lot of seeds for a lot of the future storylines that I plan on exploring, character descriptions for all the Morphodroid characters. Um, and yeah, like it'll be a pretty big expansion over just the comics only content that I'll be putting up on Amazon.
Cool. Well, any shout outs to the creative team? I know you mentioned the artist, but anything that you'd like to say about that?
Yeah, so Sergio Rios, the artist, has been a real trooper. When you're financing a comic just out of your own pocket, sometimes it's a slow and steady progress, but Sergio has been very patient and diligent about getting this thing over the finish line. So, really appreciate his support. I also had a color assistant that helped me out with just flatting out colors. His name's Ivan, and I'm probably going to butcher his last name, Kearney Alwyn. Hopefully, I get that pretty close. And then I've got a couple of different cover artists working on the different versions. Gerald Dye, a very talented American artist, is working on the cover for the English standard version. Our interior artist, Sergio, did the Spanish version. A coworker from my day job did the Filipino cover. His name's Victor Nepomuceno. He has a background in animation and did a really great rendering of our main robot character in issue one. And then I've got Ryan Miller, a very talented watercolor artist who's done a lot of Transformers, store exclusives, and that kind of thing. He'll be doing the cover for the deluxe edition. Um, Lastly, but definitely not least, I've got a series of pinups being done for that deluxe edition. So far, uh, Chris Anderson, who's a very talented comic creator in his own right and really stand up guy. When this project was just like the kernel of an idea, Chris volunteered to do some concept art, which really helped keep things moving and get some interest. And then Travis Knight, who he hasn't done a lot of comics work, but I would encourage everyone to look up Travis, just insane artist. And then don't want to short sell anybody, but again, Sergio has done a pinup, Chad Cowder, Omok Vera. There's others coming, but those are the ones that I currently have in the can. So, yeah, just trying to make this a visual feast
Mhm.
um, to get folks really buying into this universe so we can tell more stories.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned Amazon. Are there other places that people can go to check out the work and to find out more about your creating?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have morphodroids.com. That's morphodroids.com, which links out to all the social media platforms. Primarily, Facebook is the place to get most of the updates, but you can also sign up for our email newsletter through the website. Really, morphodroids.com is the hub where you can get to just about everything.
Nice. Have we missed anything in the talk through that you want to make sure to share before we close?
The only thing I would that we didn't really touch on, when we talk about creator journey and experiences, you've previously interviewed two of my collaborators on a previous project. I
Hmm.
worked with Shane Berryhill and um, Ben Perkins on Death Slinger,
Hmm.
which
Hmm.
encourage, if you haven't checked it out, from Cosmic Line Productions to do so. It was a ton of fun to work on. We I was the letterer and designer on that project, and it was I think gave me a lot of confidence to be able to continue this Morphodroids project. So yeah, that was a lot of fun, and Ben's an incredible artist. Shane spun a really fun story, so yeah, encourage everybody to check that one out as well.
Yeah, yeah. And Eli Schwab, Cosmic Lion, that's a very cool publisher and a cool space to check out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I have the t-shirt around here somewhere for Death Slinger, so next time we talk, I'll have to wear that.
Yeah. Well, maybe you'll have a Morphodroids shirt by then.
Absolutely. Would love that. Would love that. Well, many thanks, Keith. Glad to talk with you anytime. The invitation is open and looking forward to checking the book out.
All right. Thanks, Jason. I'm excited to get it out into the world.